Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go through the KY92 transmitter schematic as far as some of the basic operations. Okay, so what we're going to point out right off the bat is where our signals are coming in from. Okay, so first things first, the oscillator, right, and our RF, in other words, this is the carrier. The carrier is coming in on this line right here. Okay, so that's the carrier signal. Now, as far as where's our audio coming in from, our audio is coming in from this side. Okay, so this is our intelligence. I comes in here. Okay, now what I'm going to look at right here, right off the bat, is this portion of the circuit. This is all just amplification. Okay, we have a Class A common emitter amplifiers here and here, and then we have finally a Class C amplifier right here. Okay, so essentially what's going on is we have a couple points. We introduce our intelligence at this point, and also along here. So we introduce it kind of at 2 points, and then we amplify it all the way along, again, to get better modulation. Now, here's an important player. I'm going to go look at, I'll show you where he comes in. So this is E415. Now, this point here needs to be grounded. In other words, when we hit the transmission key, and I'm about to speak, that line puts a ground here at this point. When a ground is placed here, this guy is off. If he's off, then there's no ground here, okay? You can see he's basically, we're going to look at him as far as a switch is concerned, and he's going to basically act as a switch, and he's going to place ground here. Now, what we're going to see later is if there's no ground here, in other words, you release the key, the ground, there's a power goes here instead, and that energizes him and places a ground here, okay? Which means that whatever now is, whatever the oscillator is doing cannot get through into our amplifier, okay? But let's assume for a second we've hit the key, we're talking into our mics, and Q1 is off. Now, provided Q1 is off, now our potential here with the oscillator is enough to forward bias CR404, okay? Now, here's a little trick. If you want to know what the potential, now these diagrams give you little tidbits of information all the way along. And one of the tidbits it points out is what the potential is at this point right here. This point here is 1.72 volts. So if you add 0.7 to that, you know what the base is at Q404 or 402. You know what that potential is, okay? There's a couple other points that they do that. You can see here, there's telling you it's got 0.76 volts here at that point. There's a couple other little tidbits of information. You can see you got 13.2, 13.2, 13.2, okay? So all schematics do this. They give you little, what you should, like what we call them is test points. Little test points when you go along the schematic, what the potential should be here. You can see here you should have a modulated signal at 13.75 volts there, okay? So he's forward biased, his potential goes through. Now the carrier signal gets amplified, right? And then goes into the base of Q3. We amplify it, and then we inject our intelligence along with it. Now we have at this point here, we don't have an amplitude modulated signal. All we have is an amplified amplified carrier, right? That is just doing this, right? It's doing that kind of squiggly line. It's not amplitude modulated yet. It's just the two superimposed as if we went through a linear device. When we get to our Class C now, you'll see that we actually get our amplification, and we actually get our the top will get cut off, and we will get our full amplitude modulated signal. Now, there's an important part that's played right here, okay? This part is our filter. It's our filter, and it also does impedance matching for us. Now, normally aircraft antennas are 50 ohms, so we can assume this is impedance matched for 50 ohms. This goes out to our antenna. This portion here goes out to our receiver. Why? Well, because we want to be able to hear what we say when we talk. Okay? Now, notice this CR403. The key to the operation of CR403 lies in the receiver. Okay? The receiver has a little guy right here. When we hit the key line, we energize this transistor, which puts 13 volts on this line, which then is enough potential, to forward bias him. Because if we have potential on this side and potential on this side, provided this side's more negative by 0.7 than this side, then the signal's allowed to go through. Otherwise, it blocks it. Okay? So, and again, the idea here is that we don't want anything going this way, going into the receiver that's not supposed to, and then we don't want anything from the receiver coming into the transmitter that's not supposed to. So we have a little, all these little diodes are like little check valves that allow stuff to pass, okay? So the other portion, that was this guy on the receiver. The other little portion that I want to talk about is this guy here, this modulating amp. Notice there's a key line that goes right here, and ties in here, okay? And then he goes through. Now, when we key, we energize this transistor, which closes a switch, and then if you follow where he goes to the output here, and also through this guy, amplified, and goes to the output here. These two positions here are on our receiver. So that's these two positions. One is just providing us with our 13.4 volts, and that is basically acting as our DC potential for our Class A amplifiers. The other one's 13.7 plus our signal, our modulated signal, okay? So that's all happening at this point. And the key to this operation lies in the fact, the key to the operation lies in this K101 energizing and de-energizing, because that's just a relay based on what's going on here. And then we just have this modulator audio amp, which basically amplifies the audio and also amplifies the talk, right? So our signal, our modulated signal. Okay, so again, some of the key operations lies in the fact that another thing to note is when this line here is also energized, it energizes him right here, which sends that transmit enable line. Okay, and this one here also energizes him, which also this is the one right here. When he gets energized, he actually puts a ground on that line, and that was our transmit enable line over here. Over here, right? This one here that needed to be ground in order for it to turn him off, okay? Now we'll bounce back into some more of these details when we look at the receiver, but for all intents and purposes, that is our transmitter in a nutshell.